Welcome back to our cinematic storytelling program. Today, let's close our eyes and let the winds of the Wild West guide us. In 1960, the film The Magnificent Seven premiered and immediately created a box office fever, becoming a profound cultural phenomenon in the hearts of global audiences. With the story of seven solitary cowboys joining forces to protect a small village from brutal bandits, the work was not only a brilliant commercial success, but also became a standard for the Western genre, remaining an unforgettable memory for an entire generation. But behind those classic characters, those heroes on horseback, were actors with very distinct fates. More than 60 years have passed and time has etched different marks upon their lives. Some continued to shine brilliantly, becoming immortal icons. Some chose a quiet path, and there were those who had to end their journey in tragedy and pain. Today, let's look back at the tumultuous journeys of the cast that created the soul of the Magnificent Seven. Eli Wallach as Calvera. In The Magnificent Seven. If the protagonists were brave heroes, then the bandit leader Calvera was the perfect opposing pole, one of the most memorable villains in the history of Western cinema. With an arrogant smile and cold eyes that sometimes flashed with a cruel sense of humor, Calvera left an indelible impression. The acting of Eli Wallach at that time, at the age of 45, excellently demonstrated the complexity of a bandit chieftain, ruthless, yet somehow very worldly, very human. He turned Calvera not just into a target for the gunmen to shoot at, but into a character with psychological depth, creating weight for the entire story. Few people know that before transforming into that dusty bandit, Eli Wallach was one of the most well-trained and meticulously educated actors of his time. He studied at the drama workshop with Erwin Piscator and was a founding member of the prestigious Actors Studio, where he honed his acting skills, using the famous method acting technique alongside legendary names like Marlon Brando and Montgomery Clift. Interestingly, Marilyn Monroe, then a young, aspiring actress, was the first to befriend Wallach. Their friendship was so close that Monroe often babysat for his children. Wallach's film career began controversially with the 1956 film Baby Doll, but that only affirmed his talent for not shying away from challenges after the resounding success of The Magnificent Seven. Eli Wallach's career did not stall, but continued to flourish. He became a chameleon of the silver screen, appearing in a series of classic works, most notably as Tuco in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He maintained an astonishingly persistent artistic output spanning over 6 decades. Even in his twilight years, he continued acting, and the last film he participated in was the short regarding his private life, in complete contrast to the image of the solitary and cruel bandit on screen. Eli Wallach in real life was the model of an exemplary and warm family man. He had a blissful marriage lasting 66 years with actress Ann Jackson, his partner in life and art, who walked with him through all the ups and downs. They had 3 children together and built a peaceful home amidst the scandals of Hollywood. Although a stroke in 2005 took the vision in one of his eyes, Wallach's optimism and gentle smile never faded. He lived, contributed, and enjoyed joy with his family, becoming a deeply respected, towering figure in the film industry, proof that the aura of fame and family happiness can indeed go hand in hand. However, that glorious and happy journey had to come to an end. On June 24, 2014, Eli Wallach took his last breath, passing away at the age of 98. He departed peacefully, leaving a large void in the hearts of fans and colleagues. The legacy he left behind is not only classic villainous roles, but also the story of a true artistic life and an eternal love. Steve McQueen as Vin Tanner. In The Magnificent Seven, the character Vin Tanner appears as the right-hand man to the leader, Chris, a drifting gunman with skilled sniping abilities and a calmness that borders on coldness. With a half-smile full of nonchalance and resolute deep blue eyes, Vin Tanner became a symbol of rugged masculinity. Steve McQueen's acting at that time, at the age of 30, authentically and compellingly portrayed the aura of a drifter, a silent hero who didn't need many words to assert his status. He didn't need to force his acting, for rebellion and grit seemed to flow naturally in his veins. Steve McQueen's career after this film exploded, elevating him to the status of a global superstar dubbed the King of Cool. Leveraging the launchpad of Vin Tanner, McQueen continued to conquer audiences with a series of blockbusters like The Great Escape, Bullet Papillon, and The Towering Inferno. His minimalist acting style, focusing on action and charisma, redefined the Hollywood action hero archetype throughout the 60s and 70s. He was the highest-paid actor in the world at that time, a symbol of freedom and resistance. However, behind that brilliant aura was a soul always in turmoil. McQueen's real life was as intense as his roles. Coming from a turbulent childhood, having been in reform school and joined the Marines, McQueen always carried within him an untamable wildness. He had a passion for speed, loved racing, and often performed his own stunts. The 1971 film Le Mans is a testament to this burning passion, even though it received mixed reviews. Regarding life and marriage, Steve McQueen was a complex man with a wandering heart. He went through many romances and 3 marriages, the most tumultuous being his love affair with actress Ali MacGraw, whom he met on the set of The Getaway. Their relationship was passionate but also stormy, reflecting McQueen's erratic and intense personality. Although a top star, he always kept his distance from the fake glitz of Hollywood, preferring to hide behind sunglasses and the roar of high-displacement engines. In the final years of his life, he found some peace with his third wife, Barbara Minty, and gradually retreated into seclusion, staying away from the limelight to face increasingly serious health issues. It is worth reflecting on the contrast between the invincible Vin Tanner on screen, who always escaped death by a hair's breadth, and the real-life Steve McQueen, who had to fight a solitary life-and-death battle with illness. However, that proud journey had to stop abruptly and tragically. On November 7, 1980, Steve McQueen passed away at the age of 50 in Mexico due to a heart attack following surgery to remove a cancerous tumor. He had fought against vicious pleural mesothelioma, a consequence of asbestos exposure in the past. With all the bravery of a racer, even seeking out painful alternative treatments, his departure at such a young age left infinite regret. But the name Steve McQueen remains a legend of grit and courage. Charles Bronson as Bernardo O'Reilly in The Magnificent Seven. Bernardo O'Reilly is a special character. On the surface, he is a taciturn, rough gunman, a mercenary for money, but deep inside lies a kind heart, especially in the warm affection he holds for the village children. With a weathered face, carved like stone, and eyes that were both resolute and sorrowful, Charles Bronson left a deep impression as a gentle giant. His acting did not need to be showy. His silence on screen was the most powerful language, making the audience feel both respect and love. Charles Bronson's career was a late-blooming but incredibly enduring journey. Coming from a poor Lithuanian miner family, he brought the hardship and toughness of real life into every role. After the success of The Magnificent Seven, it took Bronson a long time to truly step up to the peak of fame. He became a top global action star in the 70s, especially with the Death Wish series, where he transformed into an obsessive vigilante. Bronson's acting style became increasingly minimalist and cold, but it was that economy of words that created an irresistible attraction, making him a symbol of naked masculinity. He was proof that one doesn't need a polished, dashing appearance. Authenticity and life experience are an actor's sharpest weapons, completely contrary to the image of brutal punishers or cold gunmen on screen. Charles Bronson's daily life was incredibly warm and full of love. He was a true family man. The deeply engraved love between him and actress Jill Ireland was one of the most beautiful stories in Hollywood. They were not only husband and wife, but also compatible co-stars in 15 films. Jill Ireland's death from cancer in 1990 dealt a fatal blow to Bronson's spirit, causing the Man of Steel to collapse. In the years that followed, he lived quietly and withdrew, carrying the pain of a loss that could not be soothed. This created a strange connection with the role of Bernardo O'Reilly, a lonely man who found the meaning of life through pure love. But in real life, Bronson was the one who had to endure loneliness when his most beloved departed the world. However, the journey of that rough man also came to an end. On August 30th, 2003, Charles Bronson passed away at the age of 81 at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. The cause of death was a combination of respiratory failure, metastatic lung cancer, and Alzheimer's disease that had tormented him in his final years. His passing left a large void in the action genre, but the legacy of a man who rose from the mines to become a legend will always be remembered. Natividad Vacio as Miguel in The Magnificent Seven. Besides the seven magnificent gunmen, one cannot fail to mention the villagers, with Miguel being a typical representative. Natividad Vacio transformed into a gentle, honest farmer, representing the weak people yearning for freedom and peace. Although his screen time was not as extensive as the main roles, Vacio's weathered face, anxious eyes, and sincerity contributed to creating an emotional foundation for the story, helping the audience understand why the seven gunmen were willing to sacrifice their lives to protect this village. In real life, Natividad Vacio was a dedicated and multi-talented actor. He was not only a character actor specializing in Latin American roles, but also a talented musician. The close friendship between him and George Reeves, who played Superman, is a beautiful anecdote in Hollywood. They often played music and sang together, sharing happy moments behind the scenes. Vacio's career spanned decades, participating in a series of classic TV shows and movies like the Milagro Bean Field War. He represented the class of diligent actors, those who may never stand in the center of the poster, but without whom the cinematic picture would never be complete. Natividad Vacio's life passed quite peacefully and privately. He dedicated his whole life to art, bringing his culture and music into every small role. The role of Miguel seemed to apply to his life in its simplicity and loyalty. He was like a poignant low note in the great symphony of Hollywood, always there, silently contributing and providing a background for others to shine without envy or complaint. However, that silent journey had to stop. On May 30th, 1996, Natividad Vacio passed away at the age of 84 in Burbank, California. His passing may not have caused a global shock like the major stars, but for those who love classic cinema, he remains an indispensable part of memory. Horst Buchholz as Chico in The Magnificent Seven. The character Chico is the youngest piece of the puzzle, the most impulsive but also full of enthusiasm. As a young gunman, yearning to prove himself to join the group, Chico carried a recklessness that was also quite endearing. With his handsome looks, radiant smile, and fiery eyes, Horst Buchholz, dubbed the James Dean of Germany, blew a fresh breeze into the film. Buchholz's acting at that time was full of energy, excellently portraying the psychological transition from an arrogant young man to a man who knew how to sacrifice for love and justice. After the resounding success of the film, Horst Buchholz stood before a golden opportunity to become an international superstar. Hollywood rolled out the red carpet to invite this handsome German actor. He continued to participate in major projects like Fanny or the comedy 1, 2, 3 by the famous director Billy Wilder. However, Buchholz's career was a series of regretful what-ifs. He missed out on iconic roles like Tony in West Side Story or Sharif Ali in Lawrence of Arabia due to a busy schedule, roles that subsequently propelled his colleagues to the pinnacle of fame. Although he continued to work persistently in the arts in Europe and held a solid position in the hearts of audiences in his native Germany, the name Horst Buchholz in Hollywood gradually faded into oblivion compared to his co-stars in The Magnificent Seven. Regarding his personal life, Horst Buchholz had a long-lasting marriage with French actress Miriam Bru. They married in 1958 and had 2 children, Christopher and Beatrice. Although the marriage was stable on paper, they chose a lifestyle separated by geography. Buchholz loved life in familiar Berlin, while his wife found success and settled in Paris. His life did not have too many loud scandals in the tabloids. He chose to live quietly, dedicating himself to the German stage and cinema. There is an interesting connection between the role of Chico and his life. If on film Chico was willing to give up a wandering life to stay in the village for love, then in real life Buchholz also somewhat gave up the glittering aura of Hollywood to return to his roots, to the place where he felt he belonged. However, that journey had to stop, abruptly shocking his loved ones. On March 3, 2003, Horst Buchholz passed away at the age of 69 in Berlin. He died of pneumonia that developed after surgery for a broken hip. His passing occurred in the same year as his colleague Charles Bronson, closing a sad chapter for fans of the film from years past. Brad Dexter as Harry Luck in The Magnificent Seven. Harry Luck is the most practical character in the group. He joins the fight not for high ideals, but because he believes there is hidden gold in this village. Brad Dexter, with his burly appearance and worldly face, performed very well in the role of a gunman greedy for material, things who ultimately sacrificed himself for his comrades. Although this role is often judged as more overshadowed compared to the other six, Brad Dexter remains an indispensable piece representing the transformation of human conscience. Unlike his co-stars, Brad Dexter's acting career after the film did not explode significantly. He was often typecast in supporting roles, villain roles, or tough guy roles. However, he found success as a film producer. The most memorable thing in Brad Dexter's life was not on the screen, but a shocking, real-life event. In 1964, he bravely saved music legend Frank Sinatra from drowning in Hawaii. This heroic act bonded the two men, and Dexter later became Sinatra's right-hand man, even vice president of Sinatra's company. However, this relationship later fractured, reflecting his straightforward and unyielding personality. Brad Dexter's love life was also stormy, with short marriages, including a marriage to famous singer Peggy Lee. It wasn't until the end of his life that he found a peaceful harbor with his wife June Dare. There is an interesting similarity between the role of Harry Luck and Brad Dexter. Both were practical men, sometimes misunderstood as opportunists, but in decisive moments they both proved their heroic qualities and precious loyalty. He may not have been the brightest star in the Hollywood sky, but he was a man of courage and worthy of respect. However, the journey of the silent hero had to come to an end. On December 12, 2002, Brad Dexter passed away at the age of 85 in Rancho Mirage. Due to emphysema, his passing occurred less than a month after the death of James Coburn, making 2002 a year full of loss for those who loved the film. Robert Vaughn as Lee. In The Magnificent Seven, Lee is the character with the most complex psychological color. He is a dashing gunman, dressed impeccably but haunted by the ghosts of the past and the fear of losing his ability to fight. Robert Vaughn, with his elegant appearance and deep eyes containing many secrets, successfully portrayed the image of a wounded warrior. His subtle acting depicted the character's internal conflict, from a cold exterior to weakness, and finally to a moment of regaining courage that was tragically heroic. Unlike the image of a dusty Western gunman in real life, Robert Vaughn was a true Hollywood intellectual. He held a PhD in communications, a rarity among actors at that time. After The Magnificent Seven, Vaughn's career flourished brilliantly, especially in television. He became a pop culture icon, with the role of spy Napoleon Solo in the hit series The Man from U.N.C.L.E. His career lasted and persisted until the 2000s with roles in The A-Team, Hustle, or Coronation Street. He always maintained a dignified demeanor, a warm voice, and an intelligent, sharp acting style through hundreds of roles, large and small. Robert Vaughn's private life was also quite fulfilling. He married actress Linda Staub in 1974, and together they built a happy family in Ridgefield, Connecticut, with 2 adopted children. Staying away from scandal, Vaughn chose a peaceful life, writing books and participating in social activities. Although there were unverified rumors about him being the biological father of director Matthew Vaughn, he always maintained a calm and discreet attitude. What is worth reflecting on is the connection between the role and his life. If the character Lee on screen always feared being washed up and death, then Robert Vaughn in real life had an enduring career and a meaningful life. Until his very last days, he was the last survivor among the 7 gunmen, becoming a historical witness to a golden era. However, the laws of nature spare no one. On November 11, 2016, Robert Vaughn passed away at his home at the age of 83 after a year-long battle with acute leukemia. He departed just 11 days before his 84th birthday, completely closing the era of the Magnificent Seven. His passing marked the end of a legend, but his elegance and talent will remain forever. James Coburn as Brit, in The Magnificent Seven. The character Brit is the man of fewest words but the coolest. As a knife-throwing expert with superior skills, Brit exudes a calmness that is chilling. James Coburn, with his lanky physique, signature radiant smile, and leisurely demeanor, turned Brit into one of the most beloved characters in the film despite having very little dialogue. He proved that sometimes presence and charisma are more important than words. After the success of the film, James Coburn quickly rose to become an A-list star. He became a symbol of masculinity, ruggedness, and humor in the 60s and 70s standing out as Spy Derek Flint in the James Bond spoof series Our Man Flint. He collaborated effectively with martial arts legend Bruce Lee and was known as a martial arts and Eastern philosophy enthusiast. However, his career was severely interrupted by rheumatoid arthritis that tormented him for many years, leaving his talented hands almost paralyzed. But like Brit's resilience, Coburn did not surrender. He fought, treated it, and returned to the screen, spectacularly culminating in an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in the film Affliction 1997, a worthy recognition for his ageless talent. Regarding his personal life, James Coburn went through 2 marriages. His first marriage to Beverly Kelly lasted 20 years and produced 2 children in 1993. He found new happiness with actress Paula Murad. Together, they founded a charity named after them to help the community. Coburn was famous for his liberal, optimistic, and life-loving lifestyle. He always kept a smile on his lips even when facing physical pain. The contrast between a cold, deadly Brit on film and a warm, peace-loving James Coburn in real life is an interesting trait. The role of Brit seemed to influence him in the stillness of his soul, helping him overcome the major upheavals of life. However, that inspiring journey had to stop abruptly. On November 18, 2002, James Coburn passed away at the age of 74 due to a sudden heart attack while listening to music with his wife at their home in Beverly Hills. He departed quickly without prolonged pain, leaving behind his trademark smile and a massive cinematic legacy. His wife Paula also passed away from cancer less than 2 years later, following her beloved husband. Pepe Hern as Tomas, another villager who contributed to creating a multifaceted picture of the lives of oppressed farmers. Although the role of Tomas did not have much screen time to display personal technique, Pepe Hern's presence contributed to creating authenticity for the film's setting. He was one of the familiar faces representing the Hispanic community in Hollywood at that time. Pepe Hern's career spanned 4 decades, mainly on the small screen. He was a hard-working actor appearing in a series of hit TV series such as Bonanza, The Fugitive, or Charlie's Angels. He is proof of the perseverance of artists who view acting as a serious profession, not just a glamorous excursion. His life did not have dazzling peaks or tragic depths, but was a gentle flow of genuine artistic labor. The role of Tomas and Pepe Hern's life met in simplicity. He lived a peaceful life, avoiding scandals, and dedicated himself to every role, even the smallest ones. He represented thousands of other silent actors, those who have been and are quietly building the massive film industry. However, that persistent journey also had to come to an end. In 2009, Pepe Hern passed away in Los Angeles at the age of 82. Passing closed the list of people who created the legend of the Magnificent Seven, leaving us with reflections on silent dedication. Vladimir Sokoloff as the old man. In The Magnificent Seven, the character. The old man is the soul and intellect of the village. He is the one who makes the decision to find gunmen to protect the villagers, representing wisdom and foresight. Vladimir Sokoloff, with his extensive acting experience and benevolent face, performed this role with absolute majesty and composure. He brought a philosophical depth to the film, reminding us of the value of land roots and survival. Vladimir Sokoloff's real life was a novel full of the upheavals of 20th century history. Born in Russia, formerly an actor and assistant director at the prestigious Moscow Art Theater, he had to undergo continuous migrations to escape the cruelty of the Nazis, from Berlin to Paris, and finally to America. Sokoloff was a true exiled artist. Although the language barrier was huge, his talent overcame it all. He became the master of makeup of Hollywood, capable of playing roles of over 35 different nationalities, from Chinese to French to Mexican. The erudition and painful experiences of real life helped him breathe life into the character of the old man in the most authentic way. Sokoloff's life is proof of the power of art to rise above borders and adversity. He was not just an actor, but a living witness to history. The role in The Magnificent Seven was one of his last roles, like a meaningful farewell. The connection between the role and his life is very clear. Both were men seasoned by experience, having gone through many storms and always maintaining a firm belief in life. However, the journey of the great artist had to stop. On February 15, 1962, just 2 years after the film's release, Vladimir Sokoloff passed away in Hollywood due to a stroke at the age of 72. He departed while still contributing to the arts, leaving behind a massive legacy of acting technique and resilient spirit.